to see you and meet you. You are doing a fantastic job. I listened to you about your expertise in the Islamic world, and I was so amused. But thank you very much for hosting me this morning. The annual Bankers Conference is an annual event in UBA's calendar. So every year we take time to have a conversation, a discussion with regulators, with policymakers, with our customers, our partners, to take stock of trends in the industry. So this year's will be the fourth series, and it is focusing on the sheer power and opportunity that comes with 4IR, that is fourth industrial revolution. So typically here we are seeing how much we can harness from technology. As you know, technology has enabled leapfrogging development across the world. The banking sector hasn't, or the financial sector hasn't been spared either. A lot of disruption, developments, more reach today than ever, more penetration, more products, more services, more risks as we do business. So the pandemic just went ahead to show how vulnerable, but also how useful technology is. So we will be taking stock of that, but more importantly, for the financial sector to see how it can harness opportunities from those developments and put them to the benefit of our customers, our population. So we'll have numerous speakers with the keynote address by the Governor, Central Bank of Kenya. We have our sponsor, Mastercard, with a lot of experience, not just in the payment space, in security of the payment technology, bringing in all experiences that they have globally. And several other speakers, regulators, practitioners, who will be sharing their experiences as we go along.
Okay, well, Mr. Ulberdowol, before I go to Mr. Ali, talk about the theme of this particular conference that is supposed to start in a few days to come. Because when I look at it here, I want you to give us the meaning of the conference in the wake of the times in which we are currently living.
So bend, but don't break, how the financial sector can thrive in this era of the fourth industrial revolution. Really, it is speaking about the sheer amount of change that has happened. And how the sector can adapt to these changes and continue to deliver the essential financial services across the economy. Really, the conference will be examining how we in the financial sector should change. I tell you, there's been a lot of change today, even the way businesses are done, even the way we as a financial sector appraise customers, look at their businesses. Today, technology has enabled many things. I can give you a very quick example. A very simple one. A young man sets up a gym, and not the physical type of gym you're used to, but it is a digital or an online gym. And he guides people to do physical exercises, and he earns revenue from that. And the way we used to appraise that, it has to change now, because that's a different model, a new way of doing things enabled by technology. And there are many such examples in the e-commerce space that we must take stock of. And this is part of what we're going to be discussing, how the financial sector can adapt, change, position itself better using technology.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Ulberdowol. Let me now talk to Ali, Ali of the country director manager of Mastercard. Now, Mr. Ali, I very well know that in support of Uganda's vision at 2040, you at Mastercard signed a strategic partnership agreement with the Uganda Bankers Association to see how you can strengthen communities and, of course, to help in improving service, especially in the financial sector. Let's first get back into your agreement with the Bankers Association and how much you've done and achieved, and what is the trajectory like over that strategic partnership agreement that you at Mastercard had with the Bankers Association of Uganda.
Thank you very much for that question. I hope you can hear me now.
Very clearly. You're clear.
Excellent.
You're clear and your audio is okay.
Thanks. Thank you. Pleasure being on the same program with Mr. Awar and yourself. So First of all, and on behalf of Mastercard, I would like to pay my respects to the families of the 2,000 plus sons and daughters of Uganda who have lost their lives to COVID, and I wish them a speedy recovery to those who are currently fighting this menace. Now, COVID has taught all of us that we are interconnected, and our well-being as an individual is only as effective as our well-being as a community. So today, if we see that there are millions of MSMEs and millions of women entrepreneurs and those who are financially excluded at the periphery of society, they're badly impacted due to this pandemic. And it is incumbent upon all leaders in the public and private sector to come together, collaborate, and solve for the real problems facing our country. Uganda Bankers Association is playing a pivotal role as a corporate body to help build these bridges and to help solve for real problems. Mastercard is delighted to be the main sponsor for this strategically critical collaboration and action-driven annual Bankers Association conference later this month. So to your question, Mastercard is a technology provider in more than 210 countries. Billions of people are using our technology as we speak right now. And what we do is basically we connect FIs, governments, telcos, fintechs, and we connect them to their consumers by providing innovative technology solutions. We are also committed to Uganda, to UBA, and our global goal of bringing in 1 billion people into the digital economy by 2025. Out of that, 50 million SMEs are our focus area. And more importantly, 25 million women entrepreneurs. And I'd like to focus on that a little bit because Uganda has been, in our index report recently, Uganda is one of the top 3 countries out of 58 countries that we surveyed, where women entrepreneurs are growing at a much faster pace. And that's credit to, obviously, Uganda and the resilience of women entrepreneurs in Uganda. So we're definitely committed to that. And I think if we look at the commitment that we've got towards UBA, and the topics that we'll be discussing at the conference, it is extremely critical to see how tech diversification, Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and robotics, how do they all come together? And how do we lead to a more financially inclusive world? And that's where it is our commitment to Uganda as a country, to UBA as a corporate body, doing an amazing job of bringing all the stakeholders together to solve for real problems.
And I thank you for that. Now, I know that one of the commitments that you had in your strategic partnership with the UBA is to see, of course, how to raise people from poverty and, of course, to see them getting into financial inclusion. But you also notice that we have a very great majority of the unbanked and the underbanked people or categories amongst ourselves. I just want to know what you have in plan stock for the unbanked society and the underbanked majority that dominate virtually the majority of our people in our countries.
Excellent question, I must say. So, let's reflect at the reality. So what is the backbone? If we look at Uganda, we've got agriculture, which is the backbone. It's the largest contributor to the GDP and as the largest employer in the country. So our ambition as Mastercard is to reach over 5 million farmers over the coming 5 years to the Mastercard Farmers Network. Now, let me just explain a little bit what the Mastercard Farmers Network is. So if a farmer in Kampala wakes up in the morning and wants to order, for example, seeds, fertilizers, and any other item that they need for their produce, they should be able to do that not by going physically to a place and getting it and using cash, but rather just even from a feature phone. They can simply access, order, and receive those goods. Now, when the time comes to sell that produce, they should have an access to marketplace through that feature phone. And that's exactly what this Mastercard Farmers Network offers. You are able to get the best price that you could sell your produce on, and you could do it digitally. And you have Mastercard's agents on ground who will actually transport those goods to the marketplace. And I think that's the kind of financial inclusion and digital inclusion that we are aiming for, and how we are planning to narrow that digital divide. Now, We are working right now with Equity Bank as our partner in Uganda. We're launching by the name of Easy Agri. This is a version of Mastercard's Farmers Network. Additionally, we have recently signed our commercial partnership with Yo Uganda, the largest fintech in the market, to roll out both Mastercard Farmers Network and our education proposition, which is Cooper, in partnership with UNICEF. So we are committed and we promise to continue to build on the Uganda digital ecosystem by bringing on board international development organizations, FIs, tech startups, and other private sector entities to supplement the critical base of the pyramid segment.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Ali. Coming to Mr. Wilbert Owori, what informed your choice of selection of Dr. Patrick Njoroge, the governor of the Central Bank of Kenya? What are you intending to learn as a good practice from the banking and the financial sector in our neighbor country of Kenya, Ndugu Owori?
Thank you very much. Dr. Patrick Njoroge is the governor of Central Bank of Kenya. Kenya has a success story globally that many countries in the world are comparing and benchmarking it in terms of the revolution that the mobile and agent banking technologies have enabled every single part of Kenya have access to financial services, even the lowest of the pyramid, the woman in the garden, in the market. Today, they're in the money economy. And that success story was enabled by technology supported by Safaricom and other banks like Equity Bank and many of the other Kenyan banks, all because of the oversight of the Central Bank of Kenya. That is a wonderful story that continues to be a learning story. And there are many others. And Kenya is a hub for numerous fintechs. There's a lot of benchmarking happening, good stories that we have seen that has enabled penetration, inclusion at all the levels. That's part of the experience that Dr. Patrick Njoroge will be sharing with us, and the policy frameworks that have enabled that, and all other collaborations that we need to put in place to see these success stories. So he will be having a lot to offer and sharing, in addition to the other speakers, including Mastercard, like I said. We'll have the central bank itself here, experts in cybersecurity, and other phases of the panel discussions that will be informing and sharing, of course, from the public. The audience itself will have opportunity to ask questions and give their viewpoints as well.
As the Executive Director of the Uganda Bankers Association, Mr. Wilbert Owori, now remember Uganda is implementing the Vision 2040, and where we are today, we are running on our third National Development Plan as one of the 6 plans for us to achieve the Vision 2040. But when you look at the aspirations and the vision of the Vision 2040 and where we want to be, you now from the banking sector, when we have this population, I am actually rephrasing the question that I asked Mr. Ali earlier on over the unbanked and the underbanked majority that we have. Many of Ugandans who have bank accounts simply have these bank accounts as a salary receiving accounts for them just to get their salaries because they can't receive cash. But they don't seem to be into the business of banking. Now you notice that many people are not getting into the banks. How do you think the banking sector can actually help us to achieve our bigger vision in 2040?
Thank you very much. Very good question. And that's part of the discussion. It's, I think, one of the panels on the second day, that's 27. What it really means is, what is financial inclusion? It is no longer just having a bank account, like you have said. When you hardly transact with it, perhaps there is even no money sometimes, or most of the time. So the definition of financial inclusion has gone beyond owning an account, whether it's on a mobile phone or in a bank, but also the empowerment, the economic activity behind it, the income that comes with it, the economic activity to enable you then enter the money economy. So what the banking sector is saying is just beyond having a bank account. How do we bring up use cases? How do we enable people to have more access to credit? What viable businesses can be done that come in the money economy? And at a macroeconomic level, that contributes to GDP because it can be tracked, and the value flow of the money therein then makes an important contribution either by way of tax revenue or financial flows. As we speak today, the banking sector has 18.5 million accounts. from about 12 in 2018 and about 6-7 million.
How many did you say?
Around about
15 million accounts.
18.5.
15 million
Today
accounts.
they are 18.5.
Wilbur.
18.
18 million accounts.
Yeah.
Okay.
Today there are 18.5 million accounts.
Okay.
Up from 12 million in 2018.
Okay.
And about 2016, 2014, there were about 6-7 million accounts. So there's been quite a bit of growth. Yes, still quite a number are still not as active. And the whole idea is then to redefine financial inclusion, like I've just said, so that beyond account, we support economic activity that empowers the actual account holders. And how do we do that? More reach, access to more credit, so that it stimulates economic activity. A lot of financial literacy is required to support that. And we ourselves, the way, like I said, we will assess credit, appraise it, the number of products and services that reach out there, who we partner with. I think Mastercard has just mentioned to you the numerous partners that they come along with, so that it's not just the financial sector, but all the other players to get products to the market, to get a good price, to get good storage, and things like that. All of them join to address the issue of financial inclusion. And I think we are seeing this happen more and more. Today's world is one of collaboration and partnerships, and that's what we'll be sharing.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Ali, coming back to you, I thank Mr. Wilbur for his submission and for his responses. Now coming back to you, Mr. Ali, I'm looking at the partnership that you, Mastercard, have with the Uganda Bank Association. And away from emphasizing, because I know it's one of the things that you want to do as Mastercard, to see how we get Ugandans into this financial inclusion, like Mr. Oworia says, it's not just about having an account, but it has to be handled holistically. Are you looking at any other specific sectors that you are empowering to help us achieve the Vision 2040 in your partnership? Are you simply talking about the financial sector, or there are other sectors that Mastercard is also getting involved into to help and to uplift the livelihoods of our people?
Excellent question again. You see, we actually work with, like I mentioned, governments, telcos, we work with FIs, and we work with fintechs as well. Now, one example I would share with you is that we recently partnered with MTN. Now, MTN enables, this enables millions of MTN customers to pay on global online platforms with a Mastercard virtual payment solution. And that's linked to the MTN Momo wallet. We are also working with Airtel. So what we do is we enable, and I think it's important for the audience to understand, and let me explain to it in terms of a picture. So let's imagine a triangle. Now, when we look at the challenges we face today, and obviously Uganda is no exception, you have financial and social inclusion on one side of that triangle. You have man versus nature on the other side of that triangle. And this is why when I say man versus nature, I talk about sustainable growth, sustainable development of the economy. We're looking at rising sea levels. We're looking at, COVID as a pandemic itself. And what we're trying to do at Mastercard is how do we solve for the financial and social inequalities? Now, this could be driven by gender, race, and so on. And on the other side, when we talk about man versus nature, we're looking at, how do we forget about the short-termism in our approach? Because what ends up happening is that when we think of things quarter to quarter, that we have to achieve quarterly results, we lose the bigger picture. And as organization, it's important for us that when we make decisions today, and I think Uganda Bankers Association Conference is a fantastic point in time where we need to sit back and reassess that we set long-term objectives which are sustainable, viable, inclusive, socially and financially. And then from there, collaboration opportunities will come out. And that's where Mastercard does a fantastic job of bringing teams and parties together to address how do we address the challenge of financial inclusion? How do we become more sustainable? And how do we have a long-term commitment and not just a short-term quarter-to-quarter approach? So that's the approach. But now coming back to your question, we are collaborating obviously with Ugandan government. We are working with the Education Ministry. We've got Coupa working with UNICEF Uganda and the country's Ministry of Education to enable parents and caregivers to pay school fees and other school expenses with their mobile phones. And this is to be done securely, easily, and in small payments when they're able or easily are able to make those payments instead of lump sums. So that's another example. Mastercard is definitely proud to be an anchor sponsor for this year's UBA conference, especially at this exciting juncture in Uganda's financial inclusion journey. And indeed, we must recognize the good work done by the government of Uganda in collaboration with the public and private sector. I mean, the number of adults with access to both formal and informal financial services has increased from 57% in 2006 to 82% to 78%, sorry, in 2018. And with 82% using mobile money services, according to 2018 FinScope report. So I think that's where Mastercard comes holistically. We partner with UBA as a fantastic corporate body, and then we partner with all other stakeholders to bring the greater agenda of financial inclusion, social inclusion, sustainability and viability home.
Okay, very important. Mr. Ward, let me now come back to you again. The Executive Director of the Uganda Bank Association. We look at the regulator of the banking sector in this country and maybe government itself. Lately, there's been a discussion in the main press, the main media, the social media, and everywhere, where everybody discusses and talks about, especially the banking sector, which may seem like it's maligning. It's maligning or talking ill about the sector. We accept that, yes, the banking sector, of course, has got its own flaws in there. But how does that affect the growth of the economy and the growth of the sector itself when we have these discussions? Putting in mind and consideration the sub judice rule that we cannot talk about a case, for example, that is before hearing in the courts of laws anywhere.
Thank you very much. I think that we cannot pretend that the economy is going through a lot of stress, quite frankly. We've had a pandemic that nobody ever prepared. Businesses have been closed. People have not been able to move. As such, businesses couldn't generate cash flow. So it's quite obvious. It's been a stressful one. When it opened, there was hope. Cash flows had started coming through again. Then we had a second lockdown. And therefore, once businesses are affected in the economy, by extension and automatically, banks are equally affected because, I mean, the businesses and banks thrive because of live and active businesses. So yes, as a result of that stress, some businesses, because there have been no cash flows, they have been struggling with repayment of loan facilities. And what we did together with the guidance of the central bank is to put in place a restructure of those facilities, a moratorium, basically meaning we postpone the repayments and reschedule that to stretch it to the future date in the hope that businesses recover, the economy opens once again, and we resume. But in there are some businesses that, in spite of that, but also right from behind, they have been struggling for different reasons. Could be a diversion of the cash flows or other reasons. Prudential regulation require that financial institutions recover this money because this is depositors' money. By the time a financial institution takes that step, it means there's been a conversation to try all sorts of means. But to me, that is missing the point. We are in a bigger financial distress, and it requires bigger macroeconomic interventions. Even the businesses that survive, when they open, they may take a while to recover. And so what we've done then is to put across various proposals to both the central bank and the Ministry of Finance that we need to have a longer or medium-term solution that will stabilize businesses, stabilize the economy, and enable businesses recover. And those, they are quite detailed. We are having discussions with the central bank and the Ministry of Finance on those aspects. We do believe over a period, in addition to the moratorium and restructures, that we can have some steps taken. We are also hopeful COVID is here to stay, that sooner than later, vaccination will cover a big part of the country so that we learn to live with it, with the SOPs, and the economy opens. Until that happens, there can be quite a bit of uncertainty. So that business resumes and recovers slowly. That is our hope, and we'll be touching on some of these aspects.
What would you personally talk about your partnership or relationship with Mastercard for the time that you've been with them, and now that you also have this annual event, the Bankers Conference, which now becomes so pivotal? It's a very big fulcrum of your activities as the bankers. What would you personally talk about your relationship or partnership with Mastercard, and what are the things that you can look to and say from the time you came into this marriage? Mastercard, together yourselves, you've actually managed to make strides and the positive results that you can take pride in.
We have a wonderful relationship with Mastercard, extremely wonderful and strong one, and we thank God for them as well. We've come a long way, not just in the sponsorship of the conference, but in partnerships, in introducing technology, in sharing knowledge, largely aimed at penetration and inclusion, like Ali said. Today, we reach many more people thanks to the partnership with Mastercard. We are conversing and discussing with them to deploy more technology, and in the near future, we'll be sharing with you more and more of how we are doing that. And the whole objective, frankly, is to reach as many people as possible in our country, to uplift them. We talked about SMEs, we talked about women-driven businesses, and that's the gist, so that more and more people are in the money economy. We are also collaborating with them on aspects of security. As you may appreciate, cybersecurity is real, and the more we go digital, there are people whose full-time job, 24/7, is just cyber fraud. So as we take on more digital services, we need to strengthen security so that there's confidence in the system. A lot of contribution has come from Mastercard, even in shaping the regulation, the National Payment Systems Act that was passed last year, and the supporting regulations. So it's been quite a rich partnership, and it's continuing to grow, and I think more things will come from it. So we are really grateful that we are partners with Mastercard.
Well, I thank you so much, Mr. Ward. Well, I'm still with you, but I'll now turn to Mr. Ali of Mastercard. Mr. Ali, talk to me about the feasibility of the legal regime that regulates, supervises, and manages our financial systems here. Is it a feasible regime of legislation, or it's a risk venture that you have no choice but to just see how to manage yourselves in there? I want you to tell us what you think about our legal regime in as far as regulating, supervising, and running the financial institution is concerned.
Excellent question. So, I think there's a lot to appreciate. There is a robust regime, is a proactive regime. And whenever I say proactive, it gets me more excited, because we have seen how when the regimes have not been proactive and have not taken on real issues onto the table, have had discussions. And the best thing about the regime is that it is there's open discussioning, there's an ear that they listen to. And I think that's how the design that comes out is in the interest, or ends up being in the interest, of all the stakeholders that are part of that ecosystem. Mastercard has been a partner in Uganda's economic progress for many years now. We are fostering technological advancements, and you cannot do all of that without the support of the infrastructure and the rules and the regulations that we abide by. So as we foster the technological advancements through the Mastercard lab, for example, and this lab is specifically set up for financial inclusion purposes, and I'll just take this opportunity to give a big shout out to all our agents on ground in Uganda, all our partners who support us in driving the financial inclusion agenda, and of course the team sitting in Nairobi and the lab sitting in Nairobi, and all the team who work very hard and have worked very hard over the years to achieve these advancements, working again closely with the regulators, closely with the government support. So I think this is where our Mastercard's first lab, which is committed to empowering millions of Africans throughout with public and private partnerships, comes to good use. And I believe that the infrastructure will be even more empowered if we have good discussions, open discussions, transparent discussions with the regulators and with the regime. So I'm pretty optimistic on that front.
Okay, thank you very much. I just got a question here from somebody who's watching the program from Butaleja, and he says, I have heard about Mastercard. I have seen them everywhere, heard about them, but who are Mastercard, or what is Mastercard? Now, somebody seems to want to really understand what Mastercard is. Now, we talk about the bankers conference here, and we talk about Mastercard, or somebody seeing you as Mastercard, and they want to know, what is Mastercard? They hear you, they see you everywhere, but who are you?
Excellent question, and thank you for asking that. So Mastercard is a technology company and a technology service provider. We are present in 210 countries. We've got billions of customers who are using our technology day in, day out. But if, for example, anybody assumes or thinks that coming to Mastercard, they'll get a credit card, or we don't sell directly to consumers, right? We are a B2B company, and then we operate on a B2B2C model, whereby we work with governments and fintechs and telcos and banks and so on, and then they have their consumers who then they pass on the technology to. So Mastercard is the rails on which all the transaction flows take place. So in simple words, that's how I would answer that, is that we are the infrastructure that connects globally transactions. We also enable all kinds of services. So from transactions at retail to government collections to telco activities. So it's a wide array of things that we are involved in, but we are mainly a technology company who provide the infrastructure for these transactions to happen.
Well, thank you so much. I hope my viewer from Butaleja actually now understands what a Mastercard is. Thank you so much, Mr. Ali. Coming back to you, Mr. Wilbur War, talk to us about one of the challenges that the people are facing now is loan repayments. You talked about that, and because there's not a lot of this cash flow in different organizations, companies, or businesses, you understand that these persons or these traders have loan obligations, they have facilities with the banks, and they need to actually get to them. Now, let's talk about the relevance of the conference that is coming on in response to the challenges of the time of COVID-19 in as far as loan repayments are concerned.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that question. I think there are two ways I will approach this. First of all, is what has the industry done? It is very true. Customers are challenged from a cash flow point of view, and as a consequence, they are struggling with loan repayment. So first of all, like I said, we undertook restructures for all the applications. More than 97% of the applications for restructuring the facility, either to reschedule the repayment to a future date and capitalize the interest instead of charging it now and having it paid now. So we've done that, and more than half of the loan portfolio, 7.3 trillion, has been restructured out of the 15, 16 trillion of the loan book across the industry. So we are doing that and continuing to do that. The moratorium runs up to September. We are having discussions whether we will extend it a little bit and so on. Secondly, and more importantly, is beyond September, as we go into the future, what happens? Some businesses have really struggled. Others will continue to struggle. There are those hardest hit sectors that will take a much longer time to recover. Education sector, tourism, hospitality, and so on and so forth. They may take a longer time. The current measures may not be sufficient, and therefore they need a longer term intervention. So like I said, we've put across proposals to have that addressed in the medium to long term so that the economy recovers even when the economy is open. Like you said, how is that relevant and related to the theme of the conference? First of all, during the beginning of the pandemic, we revised our tariffs. So for transactions that were lower than 30,000, either on internet or 50,000 at the ATM at an agent banking point, with zero tariffs. In other words, they were not being charged, just to enable our customers have access to cash because restrictions were there on movements and so on and so forth. But more importantly, the conference will highlight that even in the middle of difficult times like this one, the power of technology helps. There have been new businesses and new opportunities that have come up because of the strength of technology. Numerous businesses, whether in logistics, delivery, pharmaceuticals. I was just giving you the example of a gym as one example, and many others that can be enabled. And we have so many unemployed youth who finished university or higher school out there. Technology today is an enabler. It's not just a department. It's not something for IT guys. No. It's become part of our lives. The amount of time people spend on the phone, the number of things you're able to do on the phone is amazing. And we are saying, let's not fold our hands. Let's grab those opportunities. If you have gone to school, the millions of people who've gone to school are unemployed, there is opportunity in technology, and it is in your hands by way of a handheld device. And there are opportunities there. Secondly, the conference is also to examine we ourselves in the banking sector. We cannot continue to be rigid and remain assessing and doing business the way we have always done to the generations of the past. We must change, we must adapt, we must adopt, we must have new products, new services, new customers are coming on board whose needs and demands are different, very different. We have new players coming into the financial sector space. We can't continue to do business in the same way. And the conference is meant to dimension that, hear from policymakers, customers, regulators, legislators, users of the service, so that we structure the way we do business today, which has fundamentally changed. And we can't continue doing the business the way we've done in the past. So that's really the gist of the conference.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Ali, we just trying to finish this down. We have less than 10 minutes to be out of studios and of course to end this time now. But just gleaning to the previous conference that you had some focus on building, you had the focus on creating at least a borderless economy, a borderless 3.4 trillion Uganda shillings market in there, especially in trying to implement the African Continental Free Trade area as it's been. I want to see how Mastercard is coming into all this picture, and to also address the issue of a cashless economy, because we've scientifically proven that money in cash as it is has also been one of the issues of us spreading the pandemic of COVID-19 and growing it. Looking into getting into a cashless society, and of course also building this bigger cashless, borderless economy. How much are you doing into that, and how far is that, and what could you say about that as we tend to close down?
Brilliant question again. So look, let's make it easy and simple for the viewers to understand. Now, 90% of all transactions taking place in Africa are on the back of cash. Okay. Now, cash comes with a lot of costs. Now, people don't realize it. But you have costs for printing, you have costs for storage, you have costs for transportation, right? So by all estimates, it's running to about 2 to 3% of the GDP. Now, if you multiply the zeros, that's a lot of zeros you have to take care of just to manage cash, right? Now, and we are in no illusion or delusion that cash is going to go away. Cash is there to stay, and there is good use for cash. But at the current rates, it's not sustainable. at 90% all transactions are using cash, it's too much. And more importantly, what ends up happening is that, last time I checked, all the gray activities that have happened are never on the back of a bank account or a card. It's always done with dealings of cash. So all the leakages that an economy has to deal with, or the government has to deal with, and all the gray areas, there are always this cash somewhere lurking around there, right? So I think it's very important for all of us to understand that no, cash is not free, right? So when we look at digital and we look at perhaps digital costs, etc., when you weigh the benefits of digital, they far outweigh any benefits that we could see on the back of cash. Now, what's more important, the examples that Mr. Awar and I were talking about, if a farmer, for example, can do transactions through digital, what happens? There's data points that are coming out of that, right? So those data points, when they go to a bank can actually work with that data. Bank can actually underwrite that client for a credit facility, trade and working capital. But when you're dealing with cash, where is that data being, if you don't have a bank account, or if you're not part of the formal economy, that is just a loss of opportunity. The transaction still happened. The vendor did sell, but the record of that is not there. So I think that's where we need to appreciate the benefits of digital. And I think that as we progress forward, and I'm really excited about the UBA conference coming up, and Mastercard is super proud to be the anchor sponsor for this year's UBA conference, especially at this exciting juncture in Uganda's financial inclusion journey. And we will stay strongly committed and to continue to support Uganda towards its economic transformation goals of 2040. And we definitely recognize that digitization is going to be a big key factor in that as a key enabler. Thank you.
You're parting a short, finally, to the people about the conference in just less than 1 minute.
Well, it's really going to be an exciting conference, and I would recommend everybody to register, because the topics of the UBA conference are so apt and they're so new, and there's a lot of learning that will come out of it, because we're exploring the opportunities created by the fourth industrial revolution. So we're talking about tech diversification, Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, big words, yeah? But we need to delayer them and make it simple for everybody to understand, comprehend, and then use for the benefit of Ugandan economy. We talk about quantum computing, we talk about robotics, but we also have to be responsibly knowing about the risks which are related to data privacy, and how do we do data management, and how do we manage data security. So how all of this could lead to a more financially inclusive world and a financially inclusive Uganda by providing greater access to financial solution services is the challenge that we're going to address at this conference. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank you so much, Mr. Shahriar Ali, the country manager, East African Mastercard. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Thank you, Ali.
Thank you. Thank
Very
you so
good.
much. Thank you, Mr. Awal.
Okay, coming to Wilbrod, finally from you, Mr. Wilbrod, in just less than 1 minute, what do you have to talk about the conference as parting shots this morning?
So thank you very much for giving us this opportunity this morning to highlight what we'd like to cover. It is going to be an interesting one. For you in the media, when you talk about data storage, this particular session has to be recorded. It takes huge bytes, terabytes of information. That is the power of technology. And that has been enabled today more than ever. So on all our social media channels, on our website, there is detail for which anybody who is interested can register. It is open, it's an open conference. So I would encourage all our listeners and our viewers to register and attend. It's open for everybody, and just go to our website. There's a lot of information on how you can register. I will encourage as many people as possible to come in. We look forward to a very rich and insightful conference. Once again, thank you this morning.
Well, I thank you so much, Mr. Wilbur Award. When you're starting to speak, you said, well, I'm happy to see my old boy. Somebody in studios here does not know why Yakal my OB, but I've also had to remind him that you're an old boy of Toronto College. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Mr. Wilbur Dewar is the Executive Director of the Uganda Bank Association, and of course, my own old boy of St. Peter's College in Tororo. So we call ourselves former Nyangolians or Nyangolians. Thank you, Wilbur, and thank you, Ali, for this morning.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Asante sana. Thank you very much. And we'll just now want to stop this discussion here, but to just remind you that the conference is on the 26th and 27th of July in this year 2020, and it's going to be one of those most important functions for you to follow. It will be a virtual meeting, of course, and you, like Mr. Wilbur says, you can follow them on their website and their social media pages to also be part of the annual Bankers Conference. I thank my producer and the persons that I've done with this program of GMU Extra today. We'll stop it here now and we'll return tomorrow. But to just remind you that at 10 p.m. tonight, Charles Odongtho will also be back with Behind the Headlines. For God and my country, let's keep ourselves safe as we manage the pandemic of COVID-19. My name is Jagenda Semakula Zeko Soka. Blessings and good morning.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra.